I did not know exactly what I wanted to be. I was thought maybe fashion or graphic design. I didn't know that jewelry was an option, though I was always fascinated by jewelry. I had a grandmother who took me into her closet every chance she could to lay out her jewelry and talked about the stories and the techniques and the work, and took me to New York City to 47th Street when I was 16 to buy my very first handmade ring with a very small diamond. It took us several days to pick it out and have it created, so that was my sort of first entree into making jewelry. I then attended Parsons School of Design for college, and luckily I walked into a senior thesis show and I saw the jewelry that was being done, and I was blown away by the depth and breadth of what could happen in wearable art. From the first class I took, I just fell in love with metals. I loved the combination of the control that you had over the material. Luckily for me, I also took an enameling class my sophomore year, which would be my first year making metals. And enamel is a process where you basically add color to metal. It's glass, layers of glass that are fused on top of metal. And that was it. Okay, so now I could make these, three-dimensional pieces. They could be colorful, and there's all this great process and all this time and thought that could go into it. And so from there, I was pretty much hooked.
I've always been interested in, what shall we say, contemporary art jewelry. And I guess I became interested in it while traveling to Europe, because really it started in Europe before it started in the United States. And so when I came back from my travels to Japan and to Europe and studying and collecting contemporary art jewelry, I wanted to continue it here in the United States. But one of the things that I feel about jewelry is that it's not just an item. It's also the person that makes that item. And many times I've looked at pieces of jewelry, and because I didn't feel a certain attachment to the person who made it, I didn't feel like I wanted to own it and to live with it and to experience it. So it was kind of natural that I came across Shana. I felt a particular bond with her. I've collected many pieces of jewelry, and I've seen hundreds and hundreds of pieces, but if I don't feel I have a connection with the artist, I don't want to own that piece of jewelry. It's just another thing. But when I know the artist and I've shared an experience with them, it becomes a living thing, a living experience every time I put the jewelry on. Shana's persona comes through every piece she makes. I've known a lot of artists that I've collected, but with Shana there's a special bond. I think that somewhere in the past our paths have met, and so they're meeting again in this 20th and 21st century.
So I made my first bracelet, and it looked so much like a Shana Kroiz piece that when I wore it out to a museum opening, someone actually thought it was one of hers. And I was so complimented. I was like, actually it's mine, but it was because I took her class. So I went with her to the American Craft Council shows, and I got all dressed up, and I wore her jewelry, and I felt so beautiful and so elegant, and I had so much fun. She's really an inspiring artist and an inspiring teacher.
Shana and I met 22 years ago. She was a burst of energy. It was so exciting to have someone that actually knew about jewelry really, really well and was so dedicated to it. And she brought a passion and a spirit and invigorated all the students. I was under the assumption that the program was going to close, so I was kind of flipping out, thinking, what am I going to do next? How am I going to carry on with this? And Shana came down and miraculously somehow whipped this program into shape. I owe my entire career to that very beginning, back in the day when we moved from campus out here to this little mill and created a legacy of jewelry making.
So the first thing that we wanted to keep the community that we had built and established over the last 21 years together, and that's a community of instructors who have been extremely dedicated to teaching and to helping others become and be metal artists. One of the things that we did at MICA, and one of the things that I'm particularly proud of, is that we have always been very open to teaching all the different aspects of metalworking, jewelry making, and body adornment, and object making. So it's not just jewelry, and it's not just objects, and it's not just metals. It's sort of a combination of all the different things that converge, interdisciplinary, and I think it's very exciting. And I'm hoping that the Baltimore Jewelry Center is a place that is both a home to the people that are local, but also a place that people from around the country and world will come and study and learn. So how long do I plan on making jewelry? You know, I imagine that I will always be an artist. I imagine that I'll never really retire, and I'll imagine that I'll never stop making art. I can't see doing anything else.